So today, we're going to be talking about Recur and asking the question, what if personally owned the IP rights to Hello Kitty, the Godfather? How much would that be worth? If it's your first time here, my name's Ryan. This is the No Autopilot YouTube channel. I put out deep dive videos every Monday through Friday, going deep into projects in a type of way that I don't think you're going to find anywhere else on YouTube. Quick shout out to my Patreon. If you want to be a Patreon supporter, you get access to my portfolio moves and trades, in-depth market research, as well as also get to ask for me to go ahead and cover your particular token in a video review, which is exactly what we're doing today. Recur token. What are they trying to do? We design and develop on-chain branded experiences for fans to buy, collect, and resell. We're minting the world's biggest names in film, TV, and sports. All Recur passes are unique in holding a pass grants you utility to each Recur experience in various forms. And they've only minted around 70,000 Recur passes. No other additional passes will ever be made. So the deal is, if you go ahead and you buy one of these Recur passes, it's going to give you early access to some of the NFT experiences and products, services that they go ahead and launch across all these brands. You're an early participant. So we touched on some of these brands: Mean Girls, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Rugrats. Come on. Who hasn't watched Rugrats and real monster? Now, when we talk about the Recur passes, there are, as I mentioned, around 70,000 of them. And they do have different attributes. You can talk about the color, the pattern, what the number adds up to on it. At the end of the day, as it stands right now, if you have a pass, everyone gets the same access to any of the future releases from Recur. It does seem down the road that some of the more rare Recur passes could give you exclusive access to some interesting upcoming content from the Recur team. Now, one question I ask myself, because I look at this as an investor, okay? I'm trying to make money, right? I want to know, okay, if I shell out a whole bunch of money for a Recur pass, like what can I get in return? And a lot of people were kind of confused on figuring out exactly what that was. So I found this Reddit post, and this links to a interview from one of the co-founders. Anyone who holds a Recur pass will essentially get early beta access to the first drops of each of the experiences we launch for our brand. So in essence, you're buying. If you own a pass, you're getting pre-whitelisted to the IP drops across all those major brands. Kind of in the competitive vein of BV, if you will. See what else we got here. They talked about how they went ahead and tried to jump into this space, how their claim to fame is really taking some of those biggest IPs in pop culture, Hello Kitty, Teenage Mutant Turtles, and in essence being the starting point for those brands entering the NFT market. Now, one thing that's interesting about how they approach this, so when they're going to these brands, one of the ways that they're selling this is the concept of reoccurring royalty. So what that means is, as an NFT goes ahead and it changes hands, say I buy it from Recur, and I sell it to you, and you sell it to somebody else, a percentage of each of those sales transactions will still go back to the original artist or creator. And so from a corporate standpoint, I mean, I'm just going to call it what it is, that's a whole new revenue stream with very minimal overhead. And really, you just launch this thing and it rolls in perpetuity, earning you some profit. So I see long term that a lot of corporations are going to be jumping on this bandwagon. When we talk about some of the founding team, one thing I thought was interesting, Trevor, who's one of the co-founders, his family owned and operated a business called Trevco, and it was kind of a connection point for IPs to take their physical products and market it and solicit it on Amazon. And he says, when I learned about NFTs, I realized right then and there that my entire career of helping license brands directly to the consumer could be replicated again, this time with digital goods. I didn't have a blockchain or crypto background, and that's how I met Zach, and we came together to form Recur. So right off the bat, I like that. I like that he's not coming into this blind. He has experience in that whole branding and IP space, taking it to market, doing it successfully. That's good. He also mentions, if you kind of scroll here, these are 1,200 different brands that his company, Trevco, has worked with in the past. There's some major names in here. Cartoon Network stood out to me. Some of these auto dealerships stood out to me. Batman, Star Trek, we already talked on that. U.S. military. I mean, they got some pretty sick IP. I'm just saying. Now, I went ahead and I listened to this full interview from the team here. Let me see if I got this pulled up here. So Zach Brunch and Trevor George. I thought it was good. I think this gentleman here, he's the one with the IP background. This is the gentleman that he has over blockchain. Of course, with a lot of these folks, his kind of claim to fame is that he's been in the blockchain space for several years as an investor. He also has worked for a few different exchanges on some of their bidding desks. So he does kind of have a decent crypto background, and they've come together to go ahead and try and capitalize on this market opportunity. Now, again, kind of diving deeper into this. So Recur was founded by CEO Zach Brunch, crypto industry veteran, and CEO Trevor George, digital licensing industry pioneer. And their core team includes people who have touched work at Disney and Warner Bros., folks who have worked at NBC Universal and Polynix. So they do have, it sounds like, a pretty robust team built to go ahead and try and tackle this NFT marketplace. Now, one thing I like to do is I like to go ahead and pull up the job pages and see, who are you hiring? Are you hiring? And where are you hiring those people for? What roles? If you pull up their jobs page, they have a lot. They have a lot of open positions, especially in gaming as well as in marketing. So what that tells me is that they're planning to grow. As we'll talk about later in the video, they've had a few rounds where they've raised capital, raised funds from venture capital firms. It looks like they're immediately applying that to try and grow their team and bust into that whole NFT space. Now we went ahead, we pulled up their Reddit, 199 members. Only 2 of which are online. That's a little sparse. Their Twitter page has 20,000 followers. They're following 55, also sparse. And we pulled up their Medium page. They do have a handful of articles, and I went through and read each one. Seems consistent. Now jumping back to the marketplace. So here are the passes that we talked about. So you can go out there and get yourself a cool pass for around $800. One thing I think is interesting about these type of things, if you go ahead, you scroll down, like it limits how many passes can be shown to you. So you don't really know how many of those original 70,000 passes or what have you are being offered back up for resale, and how many are actually being just held by the people who bought them originally. Now, we touched on this already, but they did receive a Series A round around $50 million, and typically that money is spent on marketing, hiring a team, building out the minimal viable product, which was kind of the Recur website and the pass, and in essence, kind of pushing it forward. And they had a whole bunch of folks kind of pile in on that. They had a co-founder of Ethereum. I believe that they also had Gary Vaynerchuk. So they have some interesting backers coming in, support them. And they also had a $5 million round earlier on in their seed round back in March 25th, 2021. Now, as we go, we look over here. Again, we talk about the partnerships. I think their potential to go ahead and pile in some of these brands, especially as we look at collegiate sports, and if that could go ahead and piggyback and link into some of the main professional leagues out there, NFL, NBA, that would be really interesting to watch. Again, we kind of touched on those passes. Now, we look at news. They did go ahead and mention that they're going to take a percentage of the proceeds, and they're going to kind of earmark those for the Recur Community Fund. So taking some of those assets and putting it back into the community to go ahead and get everybody charged up to create, help within their ecosystem. Now, if we go ahead and look at the roadmap, we've already touched on some of these initial IPs that they're working with. But if you go ahead and you scroll down, phase 2, more coming soon. Thanks for the shout out on the mic, Chris. Appreciate it. So I think this one was kind of quick, but typically with my videos, we do a deep dive into the tokenomics. And one of my biggest challenges with this thing is that there's no utility token. And if you look at VV it does have a utility token. And I think that gives it a advantage in getting a incentivized large pool of investors behind the project out there pumping it. So let's wrap this up with some pros and cons. I think pros, it's a brand new revenue stream for media firms through a brand that they've trusted and they've used before. So they're likely to go ahead and sign up a bunch of IP that otherwise wouldn't enter the market this quickly. I think in addition to that, one of their strategic objectives is to make it very affordable. So looking at these NFT assets, they want it to be like $10, $15, up to $100, like lower tier, if you will, to go ahead and get some of those non-crypto users using crypto for the first time. I think if you also go ahead and you look at that Recur Pass, I would bet that it's going to appreciate in value pretty darn well. I've seen already, I think since one of my Patreons called this out, it's already went up a couple $100. Again, there looks to be hundreds and hundreds of these already up for resale right now. But I think if you can hold it long term, probably going to be some opportunity. And the other prawn associated with it too is the exclusive access to those NFT IP releases. So if you're pre-whitelisted to go ahead and get your hands on it before anybody else, metrics have shown that the first buyer of an NFT is typically the only one who makes money on it, right? So if you can get it before anybody else and then turn around and sell it on the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, That's kind of where the money is when it comes to NFT. I think, again, when we talk about some of the cons, I mean, I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but I wish I had a utility token. To me, it doesn't feel like a crypto project. It feels like these gentlemen here, in essence, with kind of a white collar business background, came together to try and capitalize on this. They do have a unique lever in the fact that they've kind of worked with different brands before. For me, that kind of fell a little short. I think also, not to be super negative, but I think this generative art is pretty lame. This doesn't speak to me, and it could be that I'm colorblind, right? It could be that I'm colorblind, but it doesn't do a great deal for me. In addition, if you own a pass, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the whitelisted IPs on their first launch, because you're also competing with like 70,000 other. So it's possible that you could have a pass and you could still miss out on a whitelist drop just because there's a huge demand behind it. And then in addition, I think that the customers right now are the people who own these passes. So it's the pass holders who are their customer, and they're working those brands really, really hard. But will they be able to actually get a incentivized user base up and using this protocol? I think that's a question to ask. And then in addition, we had an interview that this gentleman did here on Twitter, and he was asked directly what the take rate is. So what's the profit, in essence, that Recur is going to take on all their exchanges? And he dodged it. I kind of laughed it off, shrugged it off. Look, we know you're going to make money. We're not, displeased that you're going to make money, but I think the transparency around that would be fair to ask. I think all that just kind of ties back to the fact that it doesn't seem to be a crypto project. It seems to be a white collar corporate project that's trying to plug itself into the cryptoverse and doing a quasi decent job about it. So I think wrapping it all up, would I buy one? I would. I would buy one, because I know people are so speculative about NFT assets. But in saying that, I'm not going to buy it. If you guys have followed the channel for a while, I have a huge portfolio focused on blockchain gaming, and that's really where I'm earmarking all my capital. And then again, I think, their customers are the pass holders, but it seems like they're really bending and trying to take care of the brands from the IP standpoint. And if you're buying this NFT that is intended to be cheap, right? Intended to be lower price so other folks can pile in, how much are you really going to be able to make if you go to flip that thing? I think it's interesting. I think I could be proven wrong. I've been proven wrong a lot. You guys know that if you watch the channel. But for me, I'm not buying it right now. But I think it's really interesting. I think it has potential. And I think it'd be something to kind of circle back in a couple months and kind of see where they took it.